Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to a really different Snack and Learn today that I'm so excited about. I have two guests today, you'll notice, and it's going to be a little different. Most appealing thing to most of you is that I'm going to shut up very quickly and get out of the picture.
Oh.
But let me tell you who we do have here, because this is incredibly exciting. On the bottom of your screen is Anita Stubenrauch. And she's an ex-Apple creative veteran who worked her way from retail store employee to executive speechwriter over a 13-year career in Apple. So she designed presentations to give to Steve Jobs. She authored Apple's Credo, and she did speechwriting for Angela Ahrendts along the way. So in 2018, Anita left Apple because she really wanted to reconnect with, as so many of us do when we leave corporate, with meaning, purpose, joy. And as she went through that process, she found herself called to kind of help other people do the same thing. So today she's running a brand vision writing agency that helps a lot of us, basically the leaders in organizations and organizations themselves, really rally their hearts and minds around what fuels their soul. So she's building the Land of Make Believe, a 14-acre empathy-centered retreat space, which I have seen pictures of. And oh my gosh, folks, it is astounding. I cannot wait to hold an event there myself. It's really neat. I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about it. And she's currently an advisor to community.com, the Believe Initiative, Mind Cure Health Inc., and many others. She resides on those 14 acres in the Sierra foothills of Murphy's, California, with 3 baby doll South Down sheep, 2 Angora goats, 2 Surrey alpacas, 2 potbelly pigs, 2 dogs, and 1 cat, which makes me feel remarkably well controlled for just having 3 dogs. So Anita is here to take the lead today in talking to Jo Ann Kobuke. And Jo Ann is a hypnotist and life coach. So she focuses on helping women 40 and over create the life they really want. So there's a little overlap here too, which is kind of neat. She focuses on life coaching with hypnosis, a really fast and powerful combination that she's put together into a tool that can really help you move forward in whatever it is that you're stuck on, and primarily focused on women 40 plus, but I'm sure not entirely. So welcome, you guys. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to do a hot seat here. I hate the term. Jo Ann was saying it's an awful term. We have to come up with a replacement.
Yeah.
So the team's working on that. But I think I really like this format because, number one, I get to watch and learn. But it also gives people a real look and see on how Anita would work with somebody on something like this, and ideas for all of us, I'm sure, and just listening to the conversation. So I am going to move away, turn things over to Anita, and I'm going to watch and learn like everybody else. I'll monitor your comments. Feel free to drop them in, and I will pass them on, and we will be sure to get things rolling. Awesome. Here we go. I'm leaving. It's all you guys. Not leaving. Okay. I'm still here. I'm just down below.
Awesome. So yeah, no, please, if you've got questions or comments or things as we have this conversation, please share them so Pam can feed them to us and we can address them. But yeah, this opportunity really is, a lot of what I do, storytelling, different forms of expression, really deeply connected to like a reason for being. And it can be really easy for us to try to articulate our reasons for being in ways that other people have already, or ways that we think is going to be the most accessible for other people. And in the process of doing that, we start to drift away maybe sometimes from potentially the most powerful expressions. And some of my work is in helping people really deeply and powerfully identify like what it is, their reason for being, like what they're here to do, and whether that's as an entity, as a business, or as a, just a human. And I do that through a process that I call soul work. And it's 7 questions, seemingly simple questions, that are not so easy to answer. And most of what I do is just facilitate a conversation and drawing the answers out, and then chasing both like the emotion and like the sort of electric goosebumps that come to life when you know you hit something alive. So I'm open to seeing kind of where this conversation goes on its own and what wants to emerge and what wants to come through in service of your vision and, you know, your needs or your challenges right now. So maybe a good place to start, Joanne, is to talk about, you know, a little bit about what you're doing and where you might feel like you need help translating it or like articulating it or expressing it in ways that people can feel.
Yeah. I gave some thought to that, you know, when I found out that I got to have this opportunity today. And so I work with women 40 plus, and I choose that time in life because I think it's an important turning point for women. And, you know, I firmly believe that we have been socialized to do all the dutiful things that we're supposed to do as women, self-suffering, all of the nurturing, which is great. You know, society needs us, and that's wonderful. But at some point, it's got to be time for you to do what you want to do, to really grab life the way you want it. And I think that this time frame of 40 plus is, you know, the place where that opportunity presents itself. And I think the challenge for me a lot of times is, I think it's a time when women have this sense that they want more. They're unhappy, but they're afraid to be unhappy because then they may look like they're ungrateful because their life isn't so bad. And yet they want more. And they're not sure how to go about getting it. They're not sure how to articulate it. They're not sure how to even say to themselves that they want more because they've been indoctrinated into being selfless, you know, and giving, being the one that gives all the time and not the one that receives. And so I struggle with how to describe that in a way that is positive and not negative, that doesn't focus on the lack or, you know, or the restrictiveness that's been in your life, and to focus more on the positive so that they can really get a sense. I want them to have hope, hope that life can be the way they really want it to be.
Yeah.
And that there are people like myself who can help them get there.
Okay, so there's like three things immediately I want to ask you at the same time. So I'm like, let me pick one. I just want to put a pin in the not wanting to talk about something in a negative way. I definitely want to address that. And I want to pull the feeling in a little bit closer to yourself, right? Because I was looking through your website, and on your about page, maybe about halfway down the page, I found the thing that where you talk about when you got goosebumps, right? When you were reading something that was basically like a list of I think it was regrets people had at the end of their life.
Right.
Because then this actually combines those two things. So framed as a list of regrets, right? That's like it's a negative thing, right?
Yeah.
It triggered something in you. Palpable, like you had a somatic response, like goosebumps, hairs on end, standing up. For me, I get those kinds of, like when I talk about finding a live wire or something, that's what I get. I get goosebumps, I get chills, I get like some kind of like the flutter. It's alive. And there's something really powerful and palpable in that. And I feel like hearing more of your personal experience, like firsthand, like what was your process, and also like what really is the negative, what are the consequences of not doing the thing, because if you try to avoid it entirely, it's you can't actually really tell a real story, right? Because things aren't like perfect and just getting perfecter, right? There's a negative floor somewhere in storytelling. There's something that, you know, there's a value at stake in in the service that you're offering, and just like living life, period, whatever that value is. It could be like fulfillment or unfulfillment, right? And when that's charged negatively, like feeling unfulfilled, you feel it. and the people you want to connect with are feeling it. And if you don't acknowledge what they're feeling, it feels like you might not really know what they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to feel like there's a distance between you. So, I mean, some of the work I would do is really digging into what are the values that are at stake for the people that you serve.
Mm-hmm.
And when you charge those positively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's when it's a turning point for someone, when they can start to see a way like, how can I be fulfilled? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can start to paint the picture of the vision of what working with you might be like and what you might help them be able to achieve in their own, like, you know, super objective and sort of storytelling terms. Goal just in life is a simpler way to talk about it. It's going to be unique for everyone, but the values that will draw someone to work with you, they're the same values you can tap into in storytelling. They're the same values that someone's going to see you have fluency with because you've lived it, because you've done work with it, because people that have worked with you are expressing some transition, some kind of pivot around that value.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like maybe that's a little bit abstract because I can get really nerdy around story. But I'll pause there and like give you a chance to to reflect or respond.
No, it makes sense. The thing that hit me was that sense that I am going to be really unhappy if I get to the end of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's all, right?
Yeah.
Because then there's no more chance. I've always said there's always time, there's always a chance, it's never too late. But that really made me realize that there's a hard stop at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't just kind of keep pushing it down the road,
Mm-hmm.
because at some point, that's all you get.
Yeah.
And that realization, just like you say, sent that little bit of electric shock through me. And I thought, oh shit. Okay, I can't keep saying next year, when this happens, when that happens. I mean, we live our whole life waiting for, when this next thing happens, when I turn 16, when I turn 21, when I get out of college, when I whatever. And it really just kind of landed on me like a ton of bricks. It's like, whoa, you're going to be really unhappy. And I experienced that physical illness in my body, that sense of yeesh.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was it. That was the turning point. That and the fact that I had a birthday, and the candles were like, my daughter says, Mom, don't get the wrong idea, but I'm not putting any of those little individual candles on your cake. And I gave her this look, and she goes, I'm sorry, Mom, I can't, it's like there will be no cake left if I do that. I said, no, thanks. So she puts the little kids' candles, right? I'm like, wow. It's not like you didn't know how old you were, right? But somehow seeing those numbers there, I just went, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
change.
Those numbers are a funny thing because as you're talking about like serving women who are over 40, so I'm over 40. And I just turned 40 like in January, so I'm about to turn 41. But I like to say that I'm like turning 39 for like the second time, you know. It's just silly. But there's something in you were describing that, right? And you're talking about your experience encountering that list of things, the physical response that you had, this like sense that you could, that there was always a day where it could happen, right? Like someday. As you're telling me that, like I'm physically feeling a resonance for times in my own life where I've had that same pattern of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what story can do especially when it's authentic, right? It's true. You start to empathize with the character in the story. That character is you, but it's also me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that. And I mean, I would go really specific. I would talk about what was on that list.
Yeah.
Right. Like what was there,
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, like Pam is saying, like someday, we've all had that someday sort of thought. And then many of us have had that moment where like, I mean, it could have even just been like you skid on a mountain curve where you just like, this could have been it. And if this was it, was this it?
Yeah.
I mean, I had that experience for myself at Apple where like, I mean, I had an incredible career, right? On paper, it's remarkable, but there were definitely days where I'm waking up and I'm like, is this it? Am I really using the gifts that I was given?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I felt like it wasn't. And every day that I would wake up knowing that it could be more, it could be something, and it wasn't because I wasn't taking some kind of action, like caused me physical ill to
Yeah.
some degree until it built up to a point where like, you know, the misery of the familiar became more uncomfortable than the mystery of the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's the point at which I took a leap.
Mm-hmm.
But you're able to tell a story of your own personal journey, you know, that discomfort that you felt when that value of like life and death and like really living life and dying with regret, that's the stakes that you were experiencing. When
Yeah.
that was charged negatively, you felt it and it created a desire within you to change, to pivot towards the what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you need some of that discomfort to make a change. And
Yeah.
that's where, like, in story, you do need to talk about some of the negative things. You need to name them, not only for people to recognize themselves in them, but for people to have the feeling to, or even just to name the feeling they're already having. It's not
Yeah.
like you're introducing an idea and creating negativity within them. It's just like they're going to recognize they're living in that someday state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think where I run into trouble personally is that I feel like I'm a little too much doom and gloom about the the difficulty that it's like, yeah, I think I have a tendency to kind of be a finger wagger. You know, you really need to get your act together because you're really going to be unhappy, you know, and that's, to me, that's the wrong approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not where I want to go with that. So I have to kind of figure out how to countermand what may be my natural inclination to be a finger wagger.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe, and this is my interpretation of finger wagging, is that like finger wagging typically happens when you're telling someone what they should do, right? Versus inviting them into another option,
Right.
right? And I think in the story, in like the way that you even just talk about the services that you offer, I mean, you're offering an option for a different experience, a different feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about like what someone should or shouldn't do, because the truth is like we can't know what's right for anyone else,
Yeah.
right? But you knew what was right for you in that moment. You knew you
Mm-hmm.
needed to make a change. I knew I needed to make a change. It wasn't until like the change started to present itself that I could feel that it was the right change for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are meant to work with you will feel that it's the right change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's an interesting learning process for me because I am the oldest of 7 children. And, you know, I've always been kind of that bossy one, right?
Yeah, you're like a
And
secondary
so
parent.
there's a part of me that pulls back from being too direct because, you know, over the years you learn that not everybody takes that very well. And so you want to be liked and you want to be nice. And so you kind of tiptoe around on things. And so I'm having to relearn some of that behavior and try to become more comfortable, you know, being forthright about some of these things instead of trying to candy coat them or couch them in nice language. You know, so that's a little bit of a challenge for me, finding that right path to walk.
I mean, one of the creative explorations I would advise doing around that is to write in really the wrong way, right? Go way overboard, right?
Yeah.
And then see, okay, what I consider way overboard, is it actually way overboard or is it just like a couple degrees? Because when you're trying to avoid like going too far,
Yeah.
you end up writing in a way that doesn't hit any kind of resonance right?
Yeah.
And you're playing it safe in a way that like people are just like, okay, well, I think I've read similar statements on other websites, or
Right.
like, how
She
do I
doesn't have anything extra that she's offering, right?
doesn't carry a charge? I mean,
Yeah.
for me, and I don't know how other ways to describe this, but like there's something electric and alive when you feel the truth. And
Yeah.
so much of what my process is about uncovering and finding the truth. And when you feel it, you feel it. And when you name it and you can express it with intention, like
Mhm.
it's so powerful and it's so palpable.
Mhm.
So you can't safely, like hesitantly,
Mhm.
tentatively touch the truth.
Yeah.
You just name the truth.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean the truth is negative or positive. It's just the truth,
Yeah.
right? Um, it doesn't mean that you're mean or you're bossy. It's just the truth, you
Yeah.
know?
A fact is a fact.
Yeah. And finding and expressing it. There's something else that was coming through for me, which was around hypnosis. I'm very curious about the process that hypnosis plays in your work. And
Mhm.
also, if you were hypnotizing yourself around how you talk about your
Right.
business
Right.
and through story and like in search of the truth, what you might tell yourself.
Uh-huh. Well, the thing about hypnosis, and the thing that really reached out to me about hypnosis, was the fact that you get to bypass all of the normal chatter that your conscious mind makes about why that's not okay, why you can't do that, what's wrong with that, all of those things, because your conscious mind is there to maintain the status quo and protect you and keep you in your comfort zone, because that's what it knows. It's worked so far. You're still standing up and breathing. So, hey, we won't try to fix something that's not broken. But what happens, and so in regular coaching, you're talking to that part of the mind all the time. You're trying to get them to open up and let you pass that point where you can really get to the emotions, the real feelings, and the understanding of what's behind why they think that they're not enough, or whatever it is that's getting in the way of them being able to be successful. And so with hypnosis, you don't have to beat around the bush. You don't have to take 3 months to figure it out. You just can go there. And I've never been a very patient person, so it appeals to me to be able to like get down into it. I'm not a cocktail chatter kind of person. I don't like small talk. I like to get to the work. And so that appealed to me. And because so much of it is, in order to be effective as a coach for someone, they have to have rapport with you, right? They have to trust you. They have to be open to you. And it takes a long time in some cases, depending upon the person, to be able to do that. And with hypnosis, you don't have to spend as much time doing that. You still have to have rapport. You still have to have trust. That you can't hypnotize someone who doesn't want to be hypnotized, or who worries about what you might do to them when they're under hypnosis, right? So you have to have that rapport, but it's a different kind of rapport. It's a different aspect of it. And it doesn't take very long once they've experienced it, and once they see the change that happens for themselves, then they're all in. But I find that it's a little difficult initially for some people to get their head around. Hypnosis is not mind control. No, you won't be clucking like a chicken. It's all good. So that too is a little bit of an issue for me in terms of my marketing. And I think, coaching and hypnosis together do make an incredibly powerful combination, because once I'm there, if you will, in that space with them, then my coaching skills allows me to observe and ask questions, and to, as a coach, you develop a sixth sense about what exactly is that behind that statement, or that event, or that perception. And so both of those things together really are a powerful tool to help a woman develop their awareness. Because first of all, it's about awareness. It's about understanding that whatever you're experiencing doesn't have to be your existence going forward. You have the power to change those things, which is incredibly empowering, but also scary as shit too, because, with that responsibility comes, those feelings about, oh, well, does that mean it's my fault that I'm like I am? It's like, no, it's not your fault. You're a product of your conditioning because nobody told you that there was a difference. And you're a product of your conditioning because you were 5, 3, 7, however young you were when you were trying to interpret all that stuff that was going on around you. And you did that with your child's mind. And, we're never taught to go back and reevaluate that and question, did I really get that right? Am I really that person that I thought I was when I was 5, but based on what people told me? And so that's how that all comes into play. And it's challenging for me to be able to succinctly tell that story to people. If you give me a half an hour, I can tell you all about it. But if you give me 3 minutes, it's a little different.
I mean, what's interesting, one of the things that was coming through for me, it's kind of like where like someday meets right now. Yeah. Where you're talking about this idea of putting things off someday. Hypnosis as a tool in your coaching practice allows people to engage right now in creating the someday that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be some of what is that sort of scary as shit kind of experience, because instead of it just being someday, maybe what if, like, it's like, like, you mean
now? You mean
right
now?
Like,
yeah, exactly.
And that there's something in that I think is worth exploring creatively and through story, because that's some of what, as a practice, you're engaging in overall, right? Bringing that someday to right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, when we're at 40 and beyond, we don't have any extra days to mess around, and I think that's an important message for women to get, but I don't want to scare them with it. I mean, it's not like you have to panic, but you have to make a choice, right? How far out is someday going to be? And when are you going to decide?
Yeah.
Because the longer you wait, the less time you have to do all those great things you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question becomes like, when do you want your someday to be right now?
Yeah.
And when someone is ready for it to be right now, that they would reach out to you. Mm-hmm. And you've got the different tools and tips and techniques to help them with that. Hypnosis being one. I don't know that, I think the way you described hypnosis being kind of a shortcut, like, bypassing kind of the governor that like keeps us in, feasibility, viability, like practicality, certain kinds of patterns of thinking, all of that sort of stuff. Bypassing the governor into for me, it's a very like twisty turny, like colorful place back there. For folks who are inclined to prefer speed, once they've decided on solution, who preferred speed to solution, like they'll get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. For those women who, and see that's the thing. The women who will want to work with me are those women who are tired of all of the little baloney stuff, all the nice, fluffy, everything. And they're like, hey, I want to fix this. I've decided. And so if you can help me do this now, I'm in. So I just have to be able to articulate that that's who I'm for, so that they can find me more easily.
I'm still curious about what, if you were engaging yourself in a hypnotic process around telling the story of what you do, like what kind of stuff would you be able to bypass, in service of just getting right to the truth?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all the excuses that we give ourselves for why we're not taking that step, for why, for the most part, we know in our heart that this isn't it, right? But there are so many reasons that we tell ourselves why it's okay that we're still here. And sometimes it is okay that you're still there, because you're not ready yet to move forward. But a lot of times you're still there because you're afraid, right? And you don't, we're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of everything, what people will think. I've got this perfectly wonderful job here. I've got prestige. I've got money. I got all these things. And what do you mean you're just going to drop all that and wander off into the woods somewhere looking for your joy?
Mm-hmm.
So, our whole personality, our public persona is tied up in what's our job, who are we married to, what do we do, that kind of thing. And so that's really it. I mean, if I were talking about the story is that you don't have to be in that spot anymore. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to, yes, there is uncertainty, but the joy of living your life in your own way, being who you really are, that joy surpasses everything else and makes it all worthwhile. I think part of the thing is that many, many women have never tasted that joy.
Mm.
Maybe when they were really little, but they've forgotten because society has pushed that out of us. And so I guess part of my work is to help them remember what that joy was like and to help them have hope that they can get that back and that they can still have a functioning life. I think sometimes they think, well, if I drop all this stuff and I go over here, well, then I'm just going to be out in woo-woo land someplace and I'll never be able to pay my bills and people won't know who I am and I'll be wearing flowers in my hair and, I can't do that. I have a presence. I'm 40 now. I have to be an adult. So, there's some of that involved too.
I think I've experienced on your site where you're asking questions that are designed to prompt a reconnection to joy. Like there's some kind of what if sort of styled questions. And I think that there's an opportunity for those moments to really help me feel joy more than just a question is doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your work is helping people reconnect to joy, whatever joy means for them, and it might be a first experience of a certain kind of joy or scale of joy or depth of joy, right? Helping to paint that picture in a way people can feel. And you do that through specific details. And it's interesting that it's a seeming conundrum that the more specific you are, the more universal something can be. Because when you try to say if you say somebody walked into a room, right? You're like, okay, the room is pretty broad, right? It's could be any number of different things. But you say somebody walked into a library built into a turret, right? And suddenly you can start to see the books and their curved bookshelves that go around the room. You can start to paint a picture in someone's mind with the specific details. It doesn't mean that I have a turret, bookshelf sort of castle space. I want one. I don't have one. But I can start to see it.
Yeah.
And this combination of talking about the negative and the negatively charged values that are at stake and the joy, right? It's those two things, intention and relationship to each other, that create a movement. And in relationship, working together and coaching processes and in a lot of different types of working relationships, you're moving through story. We live through story.
Yeah.
We use story to understand our own experiences. We use story to predict the future, to tell the story of what we want to be. And you have the highs and lows. You live the highs and lows. So naming the lows and really depicting the highs in a way that someone can feel, it's so beautiful. It's so powerful. And that's where when I asked about what was on that list you read, I want those specifics, because it's quite possible that there's something on that list that I have yet to do that I would regret if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know. I mean, if this was something that was powerful enough to cause a major pivot in your life,
Mm-hmm.
there might be something in there for me. It might even be just like a shift of half a degree, but when you move through life, a shift of half a degree sends you miles and miles and miles away from where you were headed.
Yeah.
So that's something I would explore.
Okay. I can see that, trying to, figure out the ability to describe in a way that really reaches to someone's soul so they can feel that joy is a critical piece. Hi, Pam.
Hi. Oh my God. I have loved this conversation because I'm sitting here making notes on my own as well. And it really is true, Anita. I love what you said, that what we're trying to do is evoke feelings and hope.
Yeah.
And our own stories tell that so often, but we don't share them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Jo Ann, tell me what's your biggest takeaway from this, what we'll call something other than a hot seat.
Well, the biggest takeaway for me is this talking about joy, being able to express and help and help them get a taste for it, because
Mhm.
it's that taste that will move them forward.
I
right?
love
And
that.
for every person, how that joy takes shape is different, but it's my job to start that process for them.
I love
So.
that. I love that. And Anita, talk to us a little bit about, like, as you went through this conversation with Jo Ann, what is the biggest, like, action item you can pull out of it for any of us to try as we're thinking about our story and how to use it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that became clear to me as we're talking about, like, as we live through story, I think the role a lot of times that we play as service providers is as like some kind of call to adventure, right? You, Jo Ann, like, you are a call to adventure. You experienced like a moment that disrupted your world. It was the reading of that list. That's the moment, that story that shifted everything for you started, right?
Yeah.
You get to be that device, like that list. You're like an embodied list in someone else's life. So you are the call to adventure. You disrupt the world, but what you're doing as you disrupt the world is you're kind of tilting it in a way where they can see what's possible. And when they can see what's possible and they can feel it and almost start to taste it, then you're there as a guide. Your role shifts a bit to help them realize it.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding kind of the way that we storify the world around us anyway, and the archetypal roles we play as we move through the world. And those roles are played sometimes by inanimate objects. It could be a list on a blog post, right?
Yeah.
They play significant roles in the story we live, and identifying what role we're playing. And if that's not the role we want to be playing, right? If there's a more powerful role for us to play in the relationship with our clients or customers, whoever, being really clear about that and very intentional about that can have dramatic consequences, both for the people that we serve and the way in which we do our service.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank
A
you.
bazillion takeaways on these. I love this format because it makes it real, right? We often like do these snack and learns, and I love them, and we talk about stuff, but it's talking in theory. This was actually practically watching somebody morph their messaging in response. So I absolutely love this. Maybe I'll do this like a chain. So now Jo Ann will do a hypnosis and coaching of somebody. And then whoever that was will do whatever they do on something. That just hit me. That could be kind of fun. Yeah. I can't thank you guys enough for being, number one, so vulnerable and honest, Jo Ann and Anita, for putting your skills on display here for everybody so that we can all get a really good takeaway from this. It means the world to me that you guys put the time in to do this today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's
Thank
super
you. I'm
fun.
grateful
Thank
for
you,
this
Fran.
opportunity and to get to know you, Anita. Thank you.
And I
Likewise.
hope you guys have an awesome holiday. Same to all
Yes,
of you
yes,
out
yes.
there. We've got another snack and learn tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you again. There you go.
For you.
All right, I got to show off my guy who just got a haircut today.
He says, I've been waiting for you, Mom.
Look at that. So good, though. You didn't come up during the whole thing. I was kind of hoping it would be an alpaca that would show their head for petting, but
Next time, if my internet is strong enough, I'll try to take one from the back.
Take you
awesome.
outside.
Awesome. So I agree. This was a great, insightful session. So thank you guys. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and we'll all
Thank
talk
you.
again soon.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.